Good evening. I bring you greetings from the United Kingdom, a country that threw out all its Jews in 1290 and began to make recompense for that with the Balfour Declaration in 1917. For the last 2 weeks, I have been to one Balfour celebration after another. And history has been heavy on our shoulders. Just 10 days ago, I was at a dinner in London attended by Lord Balfour, the grandson of the Lord Balfour. I think the current Lord Balfour knew very little about the Balfour Declaration until a year or two ago when Jewish communities started contacting him. But he certainly entered into the spirit of it. And at the same dinner, we had Lord Rothschild, we had Prime Minister Netanyahu, we had the British Prime Minister, and we had Natan Sharansky. Between them, I think, encompassing the whole of that last 100 years of history. And 100 years doesn't seem so long ago now as I get old. 1917, my father was a high school student in Vienna and already active in one of those Jewish fraternities, Kadima, that was fighting for Zionism at Vienna University. The October Revolution in Russia had taken place. And that's important because at the time of the revolution, Jews, or some Jews anyway, thought that its success, communism, might mean that Jews became normal, just like everybody else, and would lose their special status. We now know how badly communism turned out for the Jews. But Herzl's vision was different. Herzl saw the difference, the need to stay different, and the need to have the protection of a state. And it's Herzl's vision, not the communist vision, that sustains us today and will sustain us in the future, forevermore. My father was a founder member of the World Jewish Congress. I grew up in a house with pictures of Herzl, books about Herzl, some of which he'd written. And I like to think that he and Weizmann are up there somewhere, looking down on us and marveling at the fact that in this beautiful building of the embassy right here in the heart of the United States, we are gathered together to celebrate. Britain nurtured the conception of Israel, but it was the generosity and farsightedness of some Americans that gave milk to that baby and helped it grow to full adulthood. And that's why history is so important. I want to remind you of two things about history. Israel is rooted in law. You all know that there is now a delegitimization movement. Now, Israel was rooted not really in the Balfour Declaration, that was just a letter. The San Remo Treaty, the Mandate, the League of Nations, the United Nations vote. Israel came to birth utterly legitimate. Look around the world and ask yourself how some other countries came into being. Mexico, Australia, Pakistan, Bangladesh, your own great country. War, violence, conquest, murder, killing of the original inhabitants, and settlements. Israel has nothing to be ashamed of. It is legally and morally better rooted in international law than most other countries that you look at around the world. The other bit of history that's so important is that Balfour recognized the peoplehood of the Jews. My history isn't that good, but I do know, and you all know, that the Middle East was carved up 100 years ago by straight lines, colonialists drawing straight lines, creating countries, states, that even today, more so than ever today, are at war within themselves and with others, because the straight lines that the colonialists drew as boundaries did not recognize the tribal and religious and cultural affiliations of the people within them. But in the case of the Jews, boundaries were not drawn. It was just as well. It was a recognition of peoplehood, of tribalism, if you like, of the unity of language and culture and religion and literature. And if that same Balfourism had been applied elsewhere in the region, we might have a more peaceful Middle East today. The other historical issue which is so important is education, as His Excellency the Ambassador said a few moments ago. In our country, we have, for all school children, compulsory Holocaust education. It's not working very well. They come out with a very strange knowledge of the Holocaust. But what is so upsetting is that the young people who've had Holocaust education leave school at 18, go to university, and are then found marching in the streets and fighting on campus against Israel. They have not got the message that only by having Israel can the Jewish people protect themselves, and that whatever sins, small though they are, Israel may have committed, its existence is valued 100 times over by the need for its existence and the contribution it has made to the world. It is sad to see the extremism that is creeping up on the left wing. I believe here it's on the right wing. But in Britain we're suffering with this kind of looking for something to attack on the left. And I'm sorry to say that when I look around Europe today, I see countries seemingly reverting to the sort of attitudes they held 50 years ago, 100 years ago. We hear the jackboots once again on the march across Europe. The extreme right is rising. Nothing is being done to stop them. Anti-Semitism is rising. Jews are fleeing from France. And I rejoice that Britain will be leaving the EU, because our British policy towards Israel will be and has been much more accepting, tolerant and far-sighted than that of the European Union as a whole. Finally, let me tell you a story about God. God said to the Archangel Gabriel, "I am going to create a country called Israel. It will have soft sand and blue sea. It will be a land of milk and honey with beautiful girls and handsome soldiers. It will be a land of IT and entrepreneurial success, of tourist industry, of everything that you can possibly imagine, of friendly people." And the Archangel Gabriel said, "Well, God, why are you giving so much to one small country? Isn't it a bit too much?" And God said, "Wait till you see who their neighbours are." Thank you very much.